But I want to say welcome to everybody coming here, and especially if you came from the CAS class and so forth. All these things kind of go hand in hand together. But today's session is going to be for the Advanced Rotary Reconnaissance. Now, reconnaissance is one of those subjects that do we do a whole lot of in DCS? Maybe not, because a lot of times you're already being told the enemy is at this location, go put warheads on foreheads, go take them out. Well, in reconnaissance, this could be just as important as you pulling that trigger. How do you get to find where the enemy is? How do you fix them? How do you give that information so you can do the secondary plan of really setting up an engagement? That commander or that person that's in charge of that mission might say, I need to know where the guys are so I can put the right technical assets to accomplish my mission of either A, destroying them, making them go into a location for me to destroy them, or maybe for me to even bypass them. So I need to have eyes on to see where they are and how that can be influenced by my actions and so forth. So today is going to be kind of a good subject, because this also goes in line with how do you get close to the enemy? How do you see things? How do you use your Mark I eyeball or the equipment that you have that you can utilize to get eyes on and get the situation as a recorded capability of being able to write the information down, and then at the end of the mission, translate that as, hey, Commander, here is where the enemy is, here's where these obstacles are, here's how the terrain is going to affect us if you want to engage. So really good stuff. This also falls in line with military strategic and tactical decision-making process. So really simple coming into this. This is to provide basis for discussion, to create tips, tactics, and procedures to employ attack helicopters or almost any type of helicopter in the reconnaissance role. Remember, it is successful reconnaissance that provides a successful operation. And very, very crucial. One of those things that we do in, let's say, a mission is you got to go find where they're at. And then usually we get the shiny object syndrome of, I see the enemy, I want to go ahead and start attacking them. Well, what if you were not to do that and hold off and then hold on to your reins and say, well, I know where those guys are at. Let me see if they've got any support. Let me see, maybe that's only the spearhead of the enemy. What if they have heavy armor behind them? What if they have something else that is around them? Are they a decoy? Are they trying to lure me in so they can engage me? So trying to find them, fix them, and understand in the reconnaissance side of the house, your main objective might not be even to fire a weapon. It might be, where can I gather the intel? So today's agenda, we're going to be covering the definition. We're going to talk about the fundamentals of it. We're going to talk about missions, what type of missions, and the planning and execution. And then we'll have a conclusion. And the conclusion will actually look at today's operation. This is going to be a pre-operation. In essence, the commander is getting ready to engage the enemy. We know where the enemy primarily is at. Now we need to verify certain things, and those are called NAIs, or named areas of interest. So by us doing that, we're going to look at each one of these areas, and then we're going to develop as a team, how are we going to best develop the intel? How are we going to best go into an area to gather the information? What are the obstacles that we have to think about? What could the enemy have? What do we need to be aware of? Do we work it in pairs? Do we work it as individuals? And we're going to discuss all that. So if you got a pencil and paper and write stuff down, it'll be crucial. In your knee boards today, when you fly, you'll notice that just like in any helo operation, a lot of guys have knee boards and they have fundamental information on there, things that they can write down and so forth. When you do a reconnaissance today, you're going to be doing stuff that there's going to be a lot of information, so you need to take notes and stuff like that. If you don't have that capability, let's say you're on a flat screen, you can write it on a piece of paper. A lot of times in VR, if you don't have something to write down, it makes it really difficult. So if you have something in VR that allows you to do that, great. If not, it will be a little bit of a challenge. All right. Okay, so reconnaissance is a direct effort to collect information. That's pretty much anything that you might think about in reconnaissance is you're trying to gather crucial information. You might have questions that the commander might have given you. Hey, I need to know X. I need to know, are these bridges still there? Is it, are the trees, are the capability of the enemy, did they set up defenses? Are they still in the same spot where I saw them 24 hours earlier? Are their capabilities different from what previous? And they might give you questions that you need to answer, and that is part of reconnaissance. Not just go out there and report, but maybe you have to recon and collect information that is specific to making a decision that that commander is going to use on the battlefield in the next stage of this operation. So one of the things that you can also think about is when you're gathering, how are you going to do this? What are the methods? How are things going to affect your capability of conducting reconnaissance? So doing things in the beginning will make it either harder or easier later on once you get onto the battlefield in order to accomplish that. Weather, terrain, what is the enemy doing? Those are real key things. It's not just going out and, hey, I'm going to fly. Hey, I'm getting shot at. Hey, there's where the enemy is. If the visibility or the winds are playing a factor, how are you still going to accomplish the task with the equipment or the situation at hand? So some fundamental things that we're thinking about is pretty much how long do you have the capability of doing it? I mean, do you want to go all heavy armor? You got all sorts of heavy weapons with you, go out there. Well, you might not be able to do that because your time on station is going to be affected. So you might go light. You might go with nothing. You might go with something just to defend yourself in case you got any bad guys that see you unexpectedly. Information to gather that, how are you going to do it? How are you going to orientate to see your objective? You know, how are you going to report it? And how are you going to gather that really quickly? Do you need to fastly move to your AO that you're going to conduct the reconnaissance? Or is it going to take you a long time to get there? So that means, okay, you're going to be slow and methodical. So we talked about how the maximum reconnaissance, utilizing your equipment to be on station. How are you going to do it? How are you going to orientate via the terrain? If you're in the open desert compared to the mountains, compared to a forest, compared to even on water, how are you going to conduct the reconnaissance? How are you going to see it? How are you going to report it? How are you going to record it? Now, recording information is just as important, because just because you see the enemy, you know, you need to know, when did you see them? Are they moving? Is it in a convoy? How fast are they going? Because by the time you get that information back, that commander is going to be like, okay, oh, you said he's going 20 miles an hour, and that was an hour ago, so I can expect him to be 20 miles from the known location that you just reported. So now he can plan accordingly. The freedom of movement is really important because, like I was saying a little bit earlier, the ground guys that are on the ground might be on a hilltop stationary, and they might be conducting reconnaissance over an intersection or in a town, and they're looking at something, but they are stationary. So if they see something that's outside their field of view, they don't know what it is. You, on the other hand, becomes that vital asset for that commander. Now you have the freedom of movement to relocate to get a different perspective and a different look at your objective. And you might want to gain and maintain enemy contact. Now, when I talk about reconnaissance, and I also say reconnaissance in force, reconnaissance in force is also a way of probing the enemy's strengths. Or maybe you're conducting reconnaissance because you want to engage the enemy so they reinforce that location, and you are observing their reaction. That can be just as important as you going in there and killing everybody, because if the commander says, I want you to conduct a reconnaissance in force here, I want to probe how deep does their armor go, because I can't fly any fast guys over there because they are heavily supported by air defense. So by you utilizing bullet catchers like terrain and trees and buildings to protect you, you can annoy the enemy, they can reinforce that position, and now the commander says, okay, I see what they're doing. They're pulling their resources from the left and the right, combine them in one location. Now I can go ahead and conduct a mass assault on that location. And that is information that you provide for them. And it also develops the information very, very rapidly. So the situation is never what you go out in the beginning to expect. As soon as you make the plan never survives first contact. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to have to be on your feet, on your toes, head on a swivel. How does the environment change? You're going out there, you're planning on no winds, all of a sudden it's windy, and now it's foggy, your visibility drops down to crap. How are you still going to accomplish it? So now you have to develop your plan on the fly and readjust. Gaining and maintaining contact.
Hang on. How do
yes.
you do that?
How do you do changing your mission? Or what do you mean?
Fog rolls in, you can't see crap.
So you might have to readjust the mission and say, hey, I can't see the distance that I was expecting to see. Now I need to do a change. Maybe the location that we're at, it's higher elevation. So now you have the clouds coming in. It's fogging up. My visibility drops down. So let me relocate to a lower area. So now my visibility is greater. So I might go closer to a valley and start surveilling that valley and seeing if the enemy is there. So when we're doing this, and we're also looking at trying to see how we're going to maintain contact with the enemy, we have to determine what is the size. Because for us to maintain contact with the enemy, we don't want to, in essence, be head-on fighting with them. We might want to bug them. We might send a round in their direction, or we might just decoy and have them look at us and start training their weapons to us, and we bug out after we take a couple of seconds to see what they're doing. We try to combine stealth. We don't want them to know we're here, but maybe we'll have one of our teammates show up, climb to an altitude that now they're tracking them, and we are observing what they are doing. They could be moving their forces forward. They could be setting up their defense. They can start stacking up their radars, and now their radars are coming up and everything's starting to be alive. Those are things that we need to kind of think about when we're trying to maintain contact. It's not just put a bullet in the direction of the enemy. It might just be a simple thing of showing yourself for a split second and then hiding and relocating. Part of maintaining that contact with the enemy is for you to know what they're doing, but them not to know what you're doing. So if it's an armor that's in place and they are stationary, you can see their reaction, you can see what they're doing, and you can relocate, but you haven't broken contact with them, but now they're searching for you because they expect you to be in a certain spot, but you're kind of looking at the terrain and you're wanting to go into a different location that they might not be expecting you to be, so you can get better eyes on. And that goes into orientating. So when you're looking at conducting a reconnaissance, one location only gives you one view of your objective. So never get pigeon-toed into one spot. That one spot might be good for right here, but what's on the other side of those buildings? What's on the other side of those trees or that hill? You know, that could be so crucial that if you're only in the one spot and you gather just that information from right there and you go back to headquarters, you're like, oh yeah, I only saw one BMT or one BTR. They're right there. But on the other side of those buildings, there is an entire company that was just in a formation in line, but you couldn't see them because the view was blocked. So now that commander is like, oh, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and send all my helicopters across that area because there's only one BTR. Hey, no worries. They can avoid that. But now they fly over it, and now there's 20 BTRs and there's 20 air defense units that are there because you did not just easily relocate to a different location to get a different perspective and orientate yourself to it. So think about that when you're given these types of missions. Hey, I need you to go out to this area, do this type of reconnaissance. Don't get orientated just one way of looking at it. Think of the bigger picture and think of yourself as that guy that is running around the battlefield, going from tree to tree, trying to get the best views and get a big picture and a better definition of what the battlefield looks like. It's always important because the commander is wanting to identify things that he can't see, and you are the primary eyes of that commander. You're also that primary eyes, just like in a CAS operation. You might be there conducting reconnaissance. You might be the guy that says, hey, I've got fast movers. I've got best picture of the battlefield. And now you can coordinate to get those maybe enemy attacked by fast movers or by artillery, or, hey, you now develop a game plan and say, okay, guys, all the armor is here. Let's go ahead and set up a game. Let's do a plan of attack, how we're going to accomplish this. So it helps identify those very important information, decision-making responses to questions that the commander has for you. And always remember that reconnaissance is to gather that information for the commander. It's not for you. It is for you to answer those important questions that that commander has. So you got to remain focused on the reconnaissance objective. And a lot of times what happens, we get this so much in DCS, it's that shiny object. We're out to do this mission, and then all of a sudden we get jumped by these people, and we want to go and attack them. We want to take them out. But then what did we just do? We disregarded our most important function. Our most important function is to gather that information. So the enemy just did a win by taking us off of our mission, and they preoccupied us. So when they preoccupied us, the area that we're supposed to conduct the reconnaissance changes. They know that we're there. We get in a tuffle with those guys, and now our objective that we're supposed to be looking at has now disappeared into the woods. So what do? They developed their plan to disrupt our capability. So I love the lines from Sun Tzu. He says, those who do not know the conditions of the mountain and forest and hazard and marshes and swamps cannot conduct a march of an army. So if you don't know and you don't utilize your reconnaissance to be that critical information gathering capability, then you're going into a place blind. Doesn't mean you have to do it, fire around. Your capability is way more important than even just firing around. So retaining freedom of movement, very, very important. Again, using terrain. You're going to hear me say the words MET-T, mission equipment, terrain. So terrain is very, very vital. We are the guys that in the helicopters, we can move from hill to hill, tree to tree, building to building. The scouts that are on the ground, your JTACs on the ground, can only move to this location, and it only takes them a little while to get there. We can be there in a split second. It takes them a while to do it. So we have to have that capability of maneuvering on the battlefield. Shoot, move, and communicate. We always say that when we're doing any type of operations in helos. And reconnaissance is one of those things that we are always maneuvering. We're trying to utilize the terrain effective for us, not only as bullet catchers, not only for us to hide, but to provide that stealth. If we are looking to get to an area that we're going to conduct reconnaissance, we need to not think about just that area conducting reconnaissance, but how are we going to get there in order to do the reconnaissance? That is just as important. And we got to get there by stealth, because if we are seen, then the enemy knows that, hey, I just saw a helicopter going north to south. He's going in the direction of all my forces, my command cell. I'm going to let them know that, hey, there's somebody coming in over there. And I might disrupt that plan by setting up a defense, or maybe pushing guys out ahead to where I think you might conduct a reconnaissance from. So getting there stealthily is just as important. Flying low and slow might be just as important as my moving fast. Reporting information is also something. So in your knee board today, you're going to have some NIA, and it's going to have just some simple questions to fill in the blanks. In essence, we need to know this information. It might be critical in this location, named area of interest. I want to know, I heard that there is scuds that are being pushed in closer, and they are being hidden in a small village. I need to verify, confirm, or deny that information, because if they do have those scuds there, that means it's within striking distance of one of my main forces, and that main force, I might have to pull them back. That delays their capability of going in and conducting an operation. So that becomes really, really crucial. Do they or do they not have those scuds at that location? Are they preparing those scuds, or are they in transport mode? So again, it becomes very, very crucial. Or they might say, hey, I need you to go to this area here, and I need you to report what is the enemy strength. I'm expecting that to be a reserve unit. So what does it exactly look like? Last word I got was it was a company of T-90 tanks. You get out there, and not only is it T-90, but there's also a battalion's worth of BTRs. Well, that makes a complete different game-changing decision-making for that commander. So those are really things that we are trying to gather that information. And so your equipment on your aircraft might determine how you're going to do that. You might have sensors, or you might just have your Mark I eyeball. One of the things that are in DCS is we have equipment on the aircraft, but you also have a zoom capability. Now, if you have a zoom capability, that means, in essence, you have binoculars. So you can fly, and I will tell you that in most scouting operations and most scouting in the real world, they carry a pair of binoculars. They carry that capability of seeing a little bit further. If you're in a Gazelle, then your Gazelle, you might have something that you can look through, and you can zoom out and you can see. But what if you're not in that? What if you're just in a normal Gazelle? Hey, you can take a pair of binoculars with you, and you can hover, you can do a quick check, and you can look through your binoculars. Exact same thing. Just like if you're a JTAC on the ground, you would have the same capabilities. You're looking through a pair of binoculars. You got to do the same thing. Yes.
So a lot of this makes perfect sense, but then it also depends on me being able to recognize what I'm seeing. And
yes.
I'm not very good at that. So are there resources for learning how to identify the things that we're going to be looking for?
Yes, there are resources, and some of the things that, so in a, let's say a knee board that you might have, and you might want to go ahead and do this, is have, there's a lot of websites out there, and I also have it also in our resource section, primarily for for air defense units. But if you don't know what the difference between a, let's say a BMP versus a BTR.
Exactly, or a T90 versus a T72.
Yes. So a lot of times what you should do is you should go ahead and get that information so you can put it in your knee board. A picture, what it looks like and what it is. I don't have that currently with us in this, but you can get that, and you can go ahead and put that in your knee board. You do have a very good point. A lot of times in a tactical SOP, they usually will have stuff like that. That's part of kind of a basic recognition. Now, in the air defense field, we used to have a book that just has aircraft, and it had different types of aircraft from different types of views. For aircraft, they also have the same thing. They have little booklets that have different types of equipment and different types of views. So having that in your knee board is also a great tool. A lot of experience comes into understanding, being able to define things as well. You don't have to know a BTR is a four-wheeled vehicle. You could easily say, I see, looks like an armored vehicle has four wheels on it. Hey, that's a good explanation, because you might not be able to determine the difference between a BTR and, let's say, a Stryker fighting vehicle. They both have four wheels, and they both look similar. And at a distance,
BTRs have 6.
BTR. Let's see.
No, they have 8.
They have 8.
A BRDM has 4.
BRDM has 4. BTR, a BMP is a regular four-wheeled vehicle, and a BTR, I believe, is a 8-wheeled vehicle. I believe.
It's easy to remember. It's big tire rubber.
Big tire rubber. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. But you might not also distinguish between a main battle tank and maybe a tracked artillery piece. So you could easily say, I see what appears to be 4 armored vehicles, 2 track, 2-wheeled vehicles. That could be part of your report. You might not be able to distinguish exactly what it is. And the more that you do this and the more that you try to identify things, the more you're going to learn how to do it. But having something in your toolbox on your knee board is a great tool. I carry stuff on my knee board for air defense, because there for a while I couldn't distinguish between different types of air defense missile systems. So I needed something as a reference. So when I went out and I could see it, I could be like, okay, yes, I know what the capability of that is compared to the capability of something else.
Okay.
Okay.
If anybody knows of good resources and could put a link in the chat, that'd be great.
Jane's Defence. That's what we used to use in the British Army.
Jane's Defence?
Yeah, if you look at Jane's Defence, they'll show you military vehicles from different angles, and they also give you like a black silhouette. But the point he's making is that you don't actually have to define the actual vehicle. What you do is you look at the vehicle and say, what does it have? Does it have a turret? Does it have a gun? Is it tires or is it tracked? Is it big? Is it small? Does it look heavy? Does it not? As long as you classify them, yeah, that's exactly the point. But if it's got launchers on top, that's air defense. If it's got a big turret, then it's a tank or it's an assault vehicle. The point he's making is, as long as you classify them, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Very good point. And just like soft skin vehicles, difference between a pickup truck that has let's say a machine gun on it, or a military camouflage pickup truck. Those are all 3 different types of things. One could be called a technical. One could be called a soft skin. One could be called a military style soft skin or a military truck. By me just saying those type of things, in your mind, when I told you that, you're thinking, okay, oh, hey, it's a pickup truck. Okay, it's a military truck. Oh, that's a different picture in my head from a civilian truck. A technical vehicle. Oh, that's a technical. That means it's got something that can hurt me. Okay. So that kind of gets you to kind of think about a little bit more on the things. A bus versus a truck, what are the different types of threats? Well, a bus doesn't have military people on it until that bus stops, and all of a sudden you have all these jihadis come running out with their AKs and RPGs. Oh, now that's a real threat. Those are things that if I were to look at a location and I see that there is 3 buses there, but I also see around them that there is armed military age or military style people there, then I can reasonably assume that when that vehicle starts moving, there's going to be military style people in there. That's great information for me to tell that commander, because now that commander can say, okay, well, I see that same type of vehicle coming down the road on an MSR. What's the likeliness of that being filled with bad guys compared to, hey, it's a white school bus and it could be children? Those are part of things that we are given that information for. And the other thing about this, and one of the things I like to talk about, is also battle and target handover for crucial information flow. So today's event, we're going to be doing things in pairs because you always do things with a team. Somebody has their eyes out, looking and focused on the objective. Your teammate is protecting you from all directions. He's the guy that is back far enough to make sure you don't get surprised by somebody coming up from your rear or from the left or right. So you see all the stuff that you can from the front, and the next team comes up, or let's say you're going to switch positions. So you need to give that information and do a battle handover, or say, yes, hey, I'm in a good spot. I see guys here, guys there, vehicles here, vehicles there. Here's a target reference point. There's a mosque. They're all on the east side of the mosque. They're all set up in a defensive position, or hey, they look like they're getting ready to do a convoy. Now you gave it to your buddy, or you gave it to the next team that's going to take over because you need to get refuel. So it's also crucial information to give so you can put everybody on the same sheet of music. So A, you're not duplicating the same information, and B, you're putting the situation awareness to the new guys that are coming up and giving them, in essence, a picture of what the battlefield looks like. So now they have a little bit more information. Now, when we talk about developing the situation, when we're conducting reconnaissance, it is really important to understand that everything is fluid, and just because you had a preconception of what you were going to do, things are going to change. So you have to be like Gumby and be able to adjust your plan. One of the things is, what if you are going to your location and now you've got guys that are firing at you? There's 1 or 2 guys on the side of the hill. You didn't expect them to be there. Now they're firing at you. What do? Do you contact with them, take them out? Do you back away? Do you avoid them and now change your plan of, I was going to go from south to north. Now, since I saw them there, maybe I need to go east to west to do my reconnaissance. Those are things you got to think about. What's going to happen? You got to think about your route getting there, and then discuss it with your team and just have a game plan. The worst thing that you can ever do is do this type of stuff and then be surprised. What's going to happen if you do get surprised? What if we do see all of a sudden there's a guy with a shoulder-mounted either RPG or looks like an igloo. You see him there. Oh shit. What are you going to do? Are you going to engage him? Now he's a threat. Now in essence, he's just blocked that entire area off because he's there. Is it crucial for you to be there in order for you to gather information? You might decide, hey, let's take him out. What's one of the worst things you can ever come across is a person that's on the top of a hill with no weapon except for a cell phone. That person with a cell phone can then call the enemy and say, I see a helicopter here. And then what they do is, oh, there's a helicopter there? Okay, so we got field artillery. We're going to drop some rounds on that location. So now that person that seemed to be very, very, hey, he's just a person out in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't have a weapon. Now he's your biggest threat. So you got to think about decisions on the fly. You might have to engage with fire. You might have to just back away. So when you develop things, you're thinking about how are you going to do this when you're conducting in the environment you're also operating in. If you're operating in a hilly environment or a mountainous environment, you got to think about, hey, you know, I'm using the terrain to mask me from the objective, but what if there's bad guys on the side of the hills? What am I going to do there? Am I going to clear it? And this is one of the things. Am I going to clear my way to a location that I can conduct observation? Or am I just going to run straight in, get my information, and then run straight out? You might have to decide depending on your situation or according to MET-T, your mission, your equipment, time, and how the terrain looks. So when we're looking at this, I'm just using these two as an example. We have Gazelles, we have OH-6 or the little Hughes helicopters, we have Ka-50s, we might have Ka-52s, we might have different other type of helicopters. We might have a Huey, we might have a Mi-24, we might have an Mi-8. Can those conduct reconnaissance? Yes. Are they good? Maybe. It depends on how you're utilizing them for that. A Huey compared to a Ka-50 is totally two different things. But you can still conduct reconnaissance with both. You have to know the limitations of both. So for example here, we have our 64 and we have our 58. We look at our endurance time. So if we are just carrying, let's say, one Hellfire and 30 Mike, and we don't have any extra fuel, we're looking at maybe our endurance time of 2 hours and 10 minutes. If it's going to take us 30 minutes to get there and 30 minutes to get back, what's our play time? About an hour. Okay, but we need to have some reserve. So now you're starting to think and backwards plan. So I might be only have the capability of maybe 30 minutes to actually get eyes on a location. If I'm having to clear an entire area, I might carry extra fuel so I can systematically clear the entire area. I don't need to carry a whole lot of heavy equipment. If I'm in the OH-58, I might carry something to defend myself against. So maybe a 50 cal, maybe not even rockets, or maybe one set of rockets. So if I come across that guy with the cell phone, I can take him out and still continue my mission and so forth. So these are things to think about. As a person that I'm going to assign somebody a responsibility to go conduct a reconnaissance, I need to be aware of their capabilities also.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Fallujah. So Fallujah in Iraq, and we had guys on top of a building with their cell phones. And those guys are really, really crucial because we had to identify them because we see a lot of people with cell phones in a mountainous environment, in a urban environment. Everybody's got a cell phone, But we know that because they're on a cell phone, they could be telling people how to engage our forces inside this town. If we see somebody with a radio or a cell phone that's in the middle of a desert under a camo net, well, that means they're kind of up to no good, and that might be a decision because for you, he's in a camo net. If he's in that camo net, that means he doesn't want to be seen. If he doesn't have a weapon that you can see, because that weapon could be on the ground, he could still be a possible threat. And if your rules of engagement says, I need to clear this area and I need to gather what is here, you might report that as, hey, there's somebody there with a camo net, we need to avoid that area. Or that commander might say, there's a guy there under a camo net, roger that. I'm going to send somebody to go kill him or to capture him and to find out why he's there. You continue on with your reconnaissance mission. So let's talk about the missions. Really quick, we have zone, area, route, and recon and force. Now, the zone and area can be kind of mixed, kind of the same, depending on how you do it. Route is pretty simple. You're clearing a route. And what I mean by clearing a route is you're not just flying the road and making sure the road is clear. You are clearing everything left and right of that route because you don't know if there's ambush sites set up. And you're flying over to see possible ambush, possible areas that the convoy might be consolidated and might be a bend in the road that everybody has to slow down. That's a great ambush point. So reconnaissance of a route, an area, they all have their own different things. And we talked a little bit about recon and force. So planning considerations when we're talking about this kind of stuff is, what is the commander's intent? So for today, we're going to go over what is the commander's view of the battlefield. What is the design of the operation that we are a part of to gather that crucial information? What are the critical tasks? What does he need to know in order to make decisions, either change the plan or go with the plan? What type of task organization? What type of aircraft do we have? I've got today, I see there's Gazelles, I see there's Apaches, I see there's Ka-50s, I see there is OH-58s. Each one has its own capability. Each set has great teamwork capability. Some don't work good with others. Let's, for example, say a Ka-50 and a OH-58. Do they work good together? No, not really. And the reason why I say that is because you both have equipment that's on your aircraft that you can see. They're called cameras, and those cameras have a small field of view. So you don't have a large field of view. So if I put two things that are working together that you're both looking through soda straws, then I've really limited y'all both together compared to, let's say, maybe the Ka-50 and the Gazelle. The Gazelle can see real easily 120 degrees field of view because we got a bubble canopy. But we can't see far. So we can see a large view. I put the Ka-50 with us, and now that Ka-50 and the Gazelle works hand in hand, I see something, can you zoom in on it? And now the Ka-50 can do that, can zoom in on that from a larger distance. Cool beans. So by thinking about how to utilize and how to pair up things together is also crucial. So your task organization might change up to, OH-58 and Apache, or maybe I'll just do 2 Apaches and 2 OH-58s. So you put like things together, or you put things together that complement each other. So points, release, where are we going to go on the battlefield? What is our routes? How are we going to get there? How are we going to come back? Because if we come in contact and now we need to get out of the AO and go back to friendlies, how are we going to do that? Where are we going to do that? Very, very crucial. And then we have constraints and restrictions. What's the rules of engagement? Can we go ahead and shoot that guy that's on top of the hill with surrounded by all his cows and he's got a cell phone? Can we just go ahead and blow him up and have steak for dinner tonight? No, we can't. Or what type of constraints that we have on our time, the weather. We need to get there before sunrise and be in place and have eyes on as the sun rises. Because as the sun rises, it's directly behind us, so the enemy can't, it's harder for them to see us, and they can't target us because there's a big orange ball behind us for their opticals or their heat-seeking weapons and so forth. So that might be a constraint. If we're there, if we get on station and it's like midday, well, now that's a problem. So we might have time constraints, we might have terrain, we might have weather, we might have equipment. Hey, I need to have a fuel point somewhere down the road so I can come to that fuel point, get fuel, then go back and conduct that reconnaissance. And then critical points to identify and use them as checkpoints. Hey, if we get split up, we're going to come back to this point right here. You see this hump of land? Yes, I see it. Or that road intersection. This is where we're coming back to. Roger, this is where we're going to go. Then we have names, area of interest, information that we need for our employment and so forth. And then what is the scheme of maneuvers? So back to the intent. Now we got the scheme of maneuvers for the battlefield. How do we play into this? And what is the commander expecting us to do? Not just what our task is, but how are we going to accomplish that task? So he has an understanding. Location of friendly, if you got any field artillery, any critical information reports that need to be submitted. In other words, I need to know critically, if you come across a flat dish that's not operational, but it could be, that is a critical piece of information that we need to know, because if they've got a flat dish, that means they've got the air defense units that are around there that are supported by that flat dish. That's a CCIR. Do they have the Scud, for example? The Scud would have been a CCIR, a critical information that the commander needs. And then the follow-on mission, and then how you're going to do the passage of lines and so forth. So there's a lot of planning that goes into this. So it's not just, hey, go out and conduct a recon. Hey, I need to know what the enemy is doing right there. A lot goes into it. So doing that, understanding what it is, how you're going to work together as a team and provide that security. You know, one person looks, if you're both looking at the objective, then nobody's protecting each other. So think about that. Planning and preparation, conduct the execution is also very, very important. Hey, I'm going to carry extra fuel. You carry, the weapons. We might be able to work this out. Oh, no, if I carry all the weapons, then what if I go down? You got no protection. Okay, well, let's split 50-50. You might decide to do that. So let's talk about commander's intent. And we're going to be looking at it on the map. How is the command and control relationship with the air? How are you going to talk, or are you not going to talk? Just because you're talking together on the radio might not be a good thing, because the enemy can also have direction finders as well. And those direction finders can also help pinpoint, hey, I see radio communication coming from this direction. And then this one guy over here says, hey, I'm tracking it too. And they do a cross intersection. And where that intersection meets, now you have rounds coming in your direction. So think about if you're going to talk on the radio or if you're not going to talk on the radio. How are you going to do things? Are there going to be signals? Hey, I'm going to use lights on, lights off. Okay, I see you. We're in night vision. It's nighttime. I can see your lights. If you flash your lights for a second, then I know that you're doing, or we're crossing a checkpoint, or we're doing something. If you flash all your lights and all your lights are on, that means you're under fire. The enemy already knows where you're there. So now you need to do something. You need to help protect us or lay down suppressive fire wherever that fire is coming from. So those are different types of command and control. What do you need to do in order to accomplish the mission? What type of air assets? Hey, we're going to monitor the AWACS, and the AWACS, you're going to report in the blind if you see other helicopters or if you see other fast movers. Okay, you don't have to reply back. That could be a one-way information. That's very, very crucial. And then, is there any ground troops? Ground troops are crucial because you might use them as air defense. Hey, we're going to go ahead and push an air defense unit in this AO. Okay, so they are on a hilltop and they're going to defend against any aircraft that's coming in your location down this valley. So by them putting them there, you might say, okay, I don't need to carry anything for air defense. They're going to have my back. So if anybody comes up behind us, they're going to take them out. That's working together with the relationship with others. And critical tasks is to perform each air and ground element. So who's doing what is very, very important. And that's part of integrating. So your observation plan. So for every one of these NIAs that we do today, everybody's going to have their own NIA. So their own area of interest. They have a specific task that they're going to have done. So we're going to look, and we're going to look on the map, and we're going to see, hey, how best to do this? Just because we come up with a plan doesn't mean it survives first contact, but at least you have a plan in the beginning that you can work with. You're not going out there and trying to do it on the fly. What's your communication plan? Do you have a fire support officer on standby? So you might also be a person that, hey, I've got artillery, you're within range of the artillery. If you see people here, I want you to report it. And the commander might say, hey, they've got eyes on, I want to go ahead and deliver some king of artillery on the heads of those enemy locations. So you might have to do that. And if you know how to do that, cool. In your knee board today, there is a 9-line to conduct a field artillery mission. But today, I don't expect it. I don't expect you to have to do that, but you need to think about that. And then target processing. So when I talk about target processing that's where you're going to have your notes. If you're in an aircraft that you can record locations, not just a general location, like, hey, in the valley at this grid, there is enemy, they're congregated, they're moving from east to west. Okay, or if you're in an OH-58 or say an Apache or even a K-50, you could tag those locations and then mark them. So now you've recorded that information. By recording that information, you can also develop a target listing. So later on, the mission commander says, hey, I see that there's emplacements of field artillery units. The enemy has them, and they are pushed up in berms. They're on side of a hill. They've got protection. You've already marked them. So now he can give that to the A-10s. He can give that to the fast movers, and they can prosecute and so forth. So creating that picture for the commander is really, really important. And that also is targeting. Task purpose for each target, that can also be something that the commander might say, if you come across this, let's say there is a Scud, and I'm going to use the Scud again. The Scud's in the town. Okay, we might not want to drop artillery on that town. But if you see that Scud within 500 or maybe 1,000 meters of that town, then they can be prosecuted against. And one of the things with conducting scouting operations is when you fire a bullet, when you fire a missile or a rocket, you tell the enemy where that bullet, rocket, and missile came from. So instead of you doing it, that is where a fire support plan or fast mover, they don't know where the person with the camera is looking. So always think about you never want to show your hand. You never want to show the enemy where you're at. So if you're conducting reconnaissance and it's not a reconnaissance in force, then you don't want them to know, but you want to bring the pain to them without them knowing where it's coming from. So some of the planning trends when we talk about commander's guidance and intents is critical information that needs to be accomplished. What the critical information is going to be for engaging or bypassing. That guy with the cell phone, do we bypass him or do we engage him? We see that they have air defenses set up. Do we engage or do we bypass, and so forth? And then the task and purpose for reconnaissance of the security and security force. So again, goes back into this could be the success or the failure of the mission by thinking about, okay, who's going to do what at what time. If you go in haphazardly and just go in to say, hey, I want to find them and I see them, you never know if you didn't clear the area that you're going to conduct the observation from. If you didn't clear it, now the enemy might be set up in your location and now they're raining all sorts of artillery on you. Reconnaissance, your biggest threat is going to be the enemy knowing you are there, you're outside their weapons range for a missile or a direct fire weapon like a gun, but they have field artillery or they have other helicopters or they have fast movers. So that's your biggest threat. So you have to think about how are you going to provide that security. If you see a round land right around you, which you might today, you might have rounds if you are seen, and if it's greater than 15, 20 seconds that you are dun, 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 500 feet in the air, no threat, no missiles anywhere. Oh, hey, cool, 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 cool. And the enemy sees you and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And then you come back down, and then you're like, you're hovering, you're writing your report, you're gathering your thoughts, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 you have explosions happening all around you. It's because you showed yourself to where the enemy was, and they were able to pinpoint your location. So you could just stay there, or you can relocate. So think about that with your security. So we're going to look at pictures right now. This goes into the control measures, boundaries. And when we look at this, this is going to be the first example. And then we're going to go into what the actual commander's intent and look at his battle plan and see how things are going to look. We're going to be looking at boundary lines, where we can go, where we can't go, where we are in charge of our area, but we can't go past this line because now that's somebody else's responsibility. Our start points, our contact points or checkpoints, our coordinated points. We have passages of lines or passage points. And these are, think of them as all friendly helicopters go down this valley. If you are in the valley to the left or the right and you are a helicopter, then that has to be an enemy. Only good helicopters go down this path. Bad helicopters go down all the other paths. So if you're on these other paths, then your friendlies could shoot you down because you were not going in the right location. So you weren't going through a correct passage point. You have line of departures. You have battle handover lines. In other words, you have your area and now you've secured it. Now if somebody comes in behind you, they're going to secure the next. So you're going to do a battle handover line at this point, and they can go and continue on while you go back and do your refit. You have air corridors. You got passes or phase lines. You got target reference points, targets of interest, and you also have limits of advance. So you know where the friendlies are going to go to, and they're going to stop. And then again, named areas of interest. So here is just a simple picture. This picture has a lot of information on here. We have our start points. We see the SPs. You have your boundary lines left and right. You have your line of departure or LDs. That means line of departure, okay, you're in bad man country at that point. You have a phase line. So all your ground forces are going to go to phase line Mike, and they're not going to go past that. They're going to wait until you clear pass phase line Mike to, let's say, phase line Pete. And then you have different checkpoints and you have a release point and so forth. So this will all be drawn on a map. And in your knee board today, you'll have examples of this, but your F10 map is going to have all these stuff on here. There's going to be so much information on there, so you kind of have an understanding of, oh, here's phase lines, here's my area of interest, here is this, here is that, here is where defense is, this is where the main body is going to conduct an attack, and so forth. Here's some defensive lines. So we're using the F10 map in your aircraft as a tool that you can look at. Now, your F10 map is not going to have where your enemy is. That's going to be hidden from you. But if you see them, it will pop up. So if you see them on it, they see you. So always remember that. So movement techniques, recon and enforce is pretty kind of simple. You know, you have your forward area of advance and you have your line of departure, and you're going to conduct your force recon past your line of departure, and you have your line of advance. So you're going to be probing your enemy. So that's a technique. So you're going to be employing that to gather information in this box. Where is the enemy? And let's probe the enemy. Recon and force can also be split up into multiple groups. So you can have one group on one side of a box, another group on the other side. And again, you're probing where the enemy is. You're trying to gather that information by making them do something and seeing their reaction. And again, you can even make it even more complicated by saying, hey, I've got this little box, I've got this little box, you got this little box. And again, you're conducting the reconnaissance force by splitting things up. So it's not one-stop shop. Depending on how the terrain is, you can determine how you're going to utilize your team. Considerations, again, what is the hires task organization? Do they have stuff that's going to help you, defend against you, and so forth? What is your optics? What is your weapons range of your aircraft? And what's the weapons range of theirs? What are we expecting? The intel says that they have a squadron of Mi-24s. So if they have a squadron of Mi-24s, what is one of our biggest threats from those Mi-24s? Could be their missiles, because they can be guided and they could smack us from an elevation. So we need to know what's that range. And we have to think about that. Okay, if we hear that and they say, hey, you've got two Mi-24s, they're coming from the northwest, they are 10 miles out, looks like they are going 50 knots or 100 knots. How long will it take for them to get to you? When are you going to be within their range? When are they going to reasonably be expected to identify you? Those are things to think about. What's your weapons loadout going to be? Do I need to carry extra fuel, or do I need to carry extra weapons? In reconnaissance, you carry as much fuel as possible, and your weapons you're looking at defensively. You're not looking at offensively unless you're doing a recon in force. And then what's going to be your relief plan? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it when you get to, hey, I'm bingo on fuel, let's go back? Or, hey, let my team go up, we're going to be on station for 30 minutes, and then you come and replace us in 15 minutes after. So now you have a 15-minute gap that you're overlapping each other, and so forth. So considering all that, you got to put that in your mind of, I got this mission to conduct reconnaissance. Weapons loadout, again, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Are we going to do suppressive? Do it allow us the freedom of maneuver and increase our station time? So for the KA-50, what would be a good loadout to conduct a reconnaissance? Can you carry extra fuel?
Yeah, of course, 2 bags of fuel and guns, maybe rockets.
Okay. What's the limitation of those bags of fuel? What can they take bullets? Can they not take bullets?
Yes.
Okay, they can't take any bullets. So if you come across some guy with a AK-47 and he's popping rounds at you, what is one of your biggest concerns?
Explosion of the tanks.
Oh no, not explosion. Not explosion of the tanks. Leakage. So your station
Oh,
time coming down. Because you can take those AK-47 rounds. Relatively, you can take a lot of them. But you can't bleed that fuel off because that fuel now is your time on station. So
That's
again, just like with the Apache, for the Apache, can you take a lot of rounds?
Depends on DCS's mood today.
Or the caliber of the weapon shooting those.
Or the okay. So let's say you carry a bag on your right pylon. And how many gallons is that bag?
230.
230. So 230, and if we multiply that by 6.7, we have a fuel time, because now we have how many pounds, and then it goes into our calculation, and then we can see if we carry an extra bag on, say, our right pylon, we carry that bag, that gives us an additional hour's worth of fuel. Excellent. Hours worth of fuel. So if we come across any enemy, we don't want them to be on our right side. So that's going to be a consideration. Hey, if we're coming across and we got hills to the left of us, okay, cool. If we get anybody firing those AK-47 rounds, we don't want them to shorten our amount of playtime. Now, let's talk about the OH-58. Let's say you're going to go ahead and, hey, I'm going to carry 2 Hellfires. Okay, you carry 2 Hellfires. What's your playtime going to be in the OH-58?
Maybe half an hour.
Well, if you carry 2 Hellfires, you're looking at probably an hour and 15 minutes of helicopter flight time. But you take off those Hellfires, now you've got about 2 hours worth of helicopter flight time. But you have no protection. So you carry, let's say, a 50 cal. You carry that 50 cal, now you decrease your weight, you decrease your time by about 20 minutes. So those are considerations that you're kind of thinking about. For the Gazelle, if we go clean with no weapon systems on, what's our playtime? About 3 hours. As soon as we put, let's say, guns on, or let's say a guy with a gun in the door, or a rocket, now we've almost shortened that down to about 2 hours of flight time. So weight, distance, time is a consideration. If it's a short hop and you're just clearing something very, very close, you might take a little extra weapons. If you're having to travel long distance and you have to think about, okay, I don't have a refuel point until later on down the road. Okay, I need to go maybe light on the weapons so I have extended play time in order to conduct reconnaissance. So that means I don't have a whole lot of extra equipment to defend or to prosecute. So that has to change my mindset on how am I going to do my reconnaissance. Actions on contact, again, reporting, developing, what's your course of action, what's the recommended course of action. Guy with a cell phone compared to a BTR, compared to a T-90 tank. Each one can kill you in different ways. Guy with a cell phone can kill you by calling in air support, field artillery, mass armor coming in your direction. Guy with a BTR can probably kill you with his gun. But if you're directly over him, he can't shoot directly up. Okay, cool. But you see that guy off in the distance on that T-90 tank, and you're like, I see him. He's only about 2.5 kilometers out. Okay, he can't touch me. He can't see me. And all of a sudden, you start seeing this little missile coming from him because he fired a missile out his barrel. Oh, shit. He's got a missile compared to a T-55, which does not have a missile coming out of his barrel. So those are things to kind of think about. What's the course of action? If we come across T90s, we need to avoid them, we need to mark them, we need to account for them, but we don't need to get in close to them. We can get in a little bit closer to the T55s, and we can say, hey, you know, they're a smaller tank. How many of them are there? So we might be able to get in closer to them. But what if we come in contact with them? What are we going to do? We're going to break contact. We're going to redeploy. Hey, if we have to break contact, we're going to go ahead and move to the left or to right, down this valley, down that valley. Think about that course of action. So reconnaissance methods, we either have two styles. One, they don't know we're there. Two, we're trying to probe them and we're trying to aggravate them to see what they're going to do. That's the two methods of reconnaissance: stealth and aggressiveness. Now let's talk about execution. Execution is pretty simple stuff. Execution is we're going to conduct the reconnaissance. Now, when we're conducting reconnaissance, we need to see how we're going to do that and how we're going to find and fix and how we're going to utilize the terrain. One of the things is we're flying in helicopters. If you took any one of my advanced rotary sessions earlier in the year or last year, we talked about altitude depending on your helicopter and then the donut ring for dust. So you can be within ground effect and you're going to create a donut ring. You can be seen from an aircraft above. But if you are behind a hill, let's say 30 or 40 meters behind a hill, you're still going to create a dust ring. If you are 50 meters behind a hill and you are outside of out of ground effect, you're not going to create a dust ring. So you got to think about that. When we're conducting this, we're looking at not just where the enemy is, but how does the terrain affect not only the enemy, but friendly forces. Hey, they're in a valley. The valley narrows. It comes high on the sides. So we are going to see, hey, they're going to get crunched into this small location. That'd be a good kill box, because if we kill two vehicles there, then they're blocked. Or, hey, they got to cross this bridge. That becomes a critical piece of information. If we break that bridge, now they have to go 50 miles left or right to cross the next bridge if they don't have forwarding capabilities. What type of obstacles? Also, where are they at? Are they in the flat lands or are they in the trees and so forth? So that is part of conducting it. When we conduct zone reconnaissance, it might be we're split up and we're looking at, again, phase lines. Hey, I want you to conduct in, between this phase line and that phase line. You are going to conduct a reconnaissance and get me information in this phase line between this one and this one. I need to know, hey, how are the mountains looking there? Or did they set up any defenses? Same goes for the third guys. Hey, I need you to go where we're going to be setting up a FARP. Is this a good location to set up a FARP? That might be crucial information for us to know. So your zone reconnaissance is very, very long. A zone reconnaissance might mean you're clearing 3 to 4 kilometers an hour. That's how deep it is. Or it could be open flat terrain that you can easily conduct a reconnaissance over a large zone really, really quickly. An area reconnaissance, you're actually looking over, let's call it a objective area. You want to ensure that an LZ is set up or the enemy is set up on the hills. Are they where we expect them to be? And it is a confined location. So area reconnaissance is a little bit quicker. You can go all around it. You can set up positions. You can try to identify locations in that area. You might have to confirm or deny how the terrain looks, how the enemy looks, how the friendly forces are going to look. Are there any defenses? Are there any obstacles? Are there any known areas that all of a sudden, hey, this bridge used to be there, now it's blown. So, oh shit, now where do we need to go? Now let's conduct an area reconnaissance, see if there's any other forging areas that we can cross this water. Critical tasks, again, determining the capability, how the terrain's going to affect us, how the terrain's going to affect the enemy, how the routes are going to be, how lateral boundaries, reconning those boundaries, are there any bridges, and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff that comes into critical tasks that we might have from the commander. These are just examples. It doesn't mean on this mission that we're doing today, these are going to be the ones that you need to do. Each task today for each group is going to be unique for that group. One of the things that I want you to also think about when you get your tasks is, okay, what information is going to be crucial for that commander? He's going to want to know. If there is a barrier that, let's say, the enemy has set up and all their tanks are surrounded by dirt or bullet catchers and only their turret is shown above that, well, that's a very important thing for that ground commander to know, because that ground commander might say, hey, I can't go force on force. I need to have maybe aircraft that's going to attack them from the air, because if I fire rounds, it's just going to go into this concrete bunker and it's not going to hit them. It's going to take a lot more to do that. So what are the kind of obstacles? What's going to influence? How does the enemy looking like they're going to be resupplied in case they get attacked? Another crucial piece of information that could be critical. Route reconnaissance is, like I said, here's an example of 3 teams conducting route reconnaissance. You have a route from start to release, and you have both left and right, and they're conducting reconnaissance left and right of the route, because we want to make sure that there's nobody hiding in ambush that's going to affect the reconnaissance, not the reconnaissance, the ground units on that route. So here's an example of doing that. Recon in force. We don't know where the enemy is, so we're going to go ahead and probe them. We're going to see the reaction. So again, recon in force, you are tickling the bear. What are they going to do? Is it what you expect? Are they doing what you think they're going to do? That's what the commander wants to know. So recon in force is not going and destroying the enemy. It is making the enemy either do or change their plan, and we are recording what they are doing, so we can, in essence, effectively develop our plan in order to engage, destroy, or fix them. And movement to contact is kind of pretty simple when you're conducting reconnaissance. If you do a movement to contact, you don't know where the enemy is. As soon as you have contact, what are you going to do? We're going to back away. We're going to set up. We're going to start to observe, almost kind of like the same as force recon. So one of the last things I want everybody to remember is MET-T. Everything that we do, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? What's the enemy going to do? It's all about MET-T. What's our mission? What's the enemy's situation? What do we expect the enemy to do? How is the terrain and weather going to affect us? What type of friendlies do we have at our disposal? What type of equipment are we bringing? And what time do we have? The time available is also crucial, because we might have to get this information done no later than X amount of time, because he's going to start doing another portion of the mission. His commander's intent is for us to gather that intel before dawn, so he knows where the enemy is, so he now can go ahead and execute and prosecute. Now, everybody understands typical information that I'm going to be asking for you to do is going to be think about how the terrain is going to be, what the enemy is, what the potential threat. And again, just like he said earlier, you might not say, hey, that's a BTR versus a BMP. But if you can say, hey, there's a soft skin vehicle, or it's a 4-wheeled vehicle, or it's a track vehicle, it appears to have weapons on top, it looks like it's got some kind of rotating disc on top, it's got 2 guns on the side, it's a track vehicle, and it looks like there's a radar dish on top. Okay, see, that information is so important as well. You don't know, it sounds like an air defense unit, and it looks like they might have an air defense unit associated with this group. good information. You trying to identify, take notes. Hey, I see a lot of guys, it looks like they are bunkered. There's a lot of tents, but it looks like they've got man-made obstacles. It looks like they've got HESCO barriers, or it looks like, hey, there's a whole bunch of 70-foot containers right here. Or, hey, there's a lot of destroyed vehicles that are piled up. Very good, important information. Hey, I see that there looks like there's a digging unit right here. Oh, why is there a digging unit in the middle of nowhere? Well, they're digging. What are they digging? Oh, it looks like they're digging trenches for their troops. Very important information. So, and then what type of obstacles, like I said, man-made and so forth, and then what type of weather environmental conditions are you experiencing? You know, it's morning time frame. There is mist. I could not see greater than 2 statute miles. Or, hey, it's clear in a million. I was able to see them from 10 nautical miles away. Cool beans. How did that impact you?
Excuse me?
Yes.
How important is this terrain thing in this age? Like, we have satellites, we have detailed maps, we have Google Street View, we have all these things. Why do we need to tell the commander about where the bridge is? I mean, he knows that already.
He knows where the bridge is, but let's do the example of this mission. 72 hours earlier, we had a Reaper drone that was conducting reconnaissance over this entire area. They, within the last 48 hours, fired a missile and took out our Reaper drone. All right, so the last information that we had was we had these bridges that were all intact. So we know 2 of the bridges are heavy enough, are stable enough that heavy tanks can transport across them without them being critical. We know that these other bridges, only soft skin vehicles can travel across because they're so narrow. So we know that crucial bridges that can carry M1 tanks, we need to ensure, are those bridges still intact? Are they not? Because now, by us going out there within 24 hours of the operation, we're conducting a reconnaissance. Are these the same, or did these change? So now that commander says, oh, well, I was going to send all my tanks across these bridges. Now I have to go to this bridge that is 20 miles down the road in order for me to do it.
So in other words, it's not so much that this thing is here, but the condition of the terrain and the features, right?
Yes.
Like the current condition.
Yes.
Terrain can also be dynamic. Like, you could have allocations set up, you could be observing it, and if they observed it two days before, you could say, right, that river's crossable, but there could be a rain squall 20 miles north of you that no one's aware of. That means that river is no longer passable.
Yeah.
Or you can get flooding, or you can get snow. So terrain doesn't remain static.
That is so true. And just like the weather and the environmental conditions, you know, we could say, hey, right now we are suspecting the weather conditions to drop down. Okay, if they drop down, what is that going to do? That means we can't see the enemy's movement. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and send you out at the break of dawn, and we're going to send you to go see, hey, did the enemy forces go ahead and utilize that weather condition in order to push their forces forward or into different battle positions? So let's take a look at the map, guys. So this is a topographical map, and this would be like, hey, here's the commander's intent. He's going to be crossing phase line Alpha, phase line Bravo. He's got armor units. He's going up against mechanized units, and we've got a battle position that we're setting up. This is what the map looks like, and we can see all this high terrain. We can see the valleys. We see the roads. And for us, we might get task responsibilities of, hey, I need you to verify that, near phase line Alpha and Bravo, all those draws, all those high terrains, they're cleared of any enemy. There's nobody up there, that they snuck, let's say, a unit up there of anti-tank weapon systems. So you're going to go and you're going to conduct a reconnaissance of that area or that zone. So you're looking at it and you're seeing all these dark areas. So you got to clear them. So that's going to be one of the things. How are you going to do it? How are you going to conduct the reconnaissance on that one? Is it going to be a reconnaissance that you're told that, hey, I need you to go find all of them, but don't kill them, because I want you to go ahead and once you find them and fix them and locate them, then I want you to clear the next layer from phase line Bravo on up along those hills. And I want you to clear all those draws, all those valleys. Are there enemy there? Because if there is, then maybe my decision to have all my armored forces come up this valley is not a good thing. Maybe I need to conduct a decoy operation and then move all my forces to the east around that high terrain to the east, and then come up and attack them from the side. So it's not a head-on. That would be part of map reconnaissance. Our task is to do this. Now we look at the terrain. How do we do it with the terrain? And that's what we're going to be looking at. Then we go into a different type of mapping, and we can see, hey, this is where 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago, this was the latest we saw that our friendly forces were and where the enemy was before we lost our Reapers. So we see the same picture, okay? We see the same kind of setup here, right? Boom. And we see how it's kind of looks now. And now we have kind of, okay, here's the latest intel. We know that there's armor to the east. We know there's armor directly in front of our friendly forces. We know that there's either field artillery. It looks like field artillery in the middle of the screen. It looks like there's another set of armor in the building close to the north, and we see field artillery. We see air defenses. We see more field artillery. Okay, so we know at least 72 hours information we had bad guys in these spots. So for me as a ground commander, I might say, okay, I don't have eyes on. Are they still there? Do I mass my forces, or do I need to readjust my battle plan? So now we start looking at what the hires plan is. Now, if you remember, look at this. Look how this looks. It almost looks the same. But for the commander, he's like, okay, I know that there's bad guys in these locations, but I need to confirm them. So now I need to have reconnaissance units. I need to verify NAI 4. Are those that are in that valley, are they still in place there? Do I need a helicopter to go do that, or do I need a ground unit to go do that? I might say I need to transport a ground unit there on the high hilltops so they can go ahead and get eyes on. I don't need to have a helicopter go do that. But NAI 5, I got word that there might be a Scud at that location in one of those areas. Now, if we look back here, we know that we had some units there, but now we got word that they transported possibly a Scud there. So now, NAI 5, named area of interest, I will have to task, I need a recon unit to go get eyes on, are there any Scuds at any one of those locations, any one of those places that have buildings? Did they sneak one in? Is it ready? Is it not? So I'm going to have to task a helicopter group to go conduct a reconnaissance of that. NAI 1, that's after phase line Delta. Now, the ground units are going to push to objective Hot Dog and objective Delta. That's the commander's intent. When we conduct this operation, he's going to go ahead and push, and that's where he wants to get to. We know that there's enemy. Again, if we look at our latest map, we know that there's enemy in the middle. There might be field artillery units. But we know that in AI1, there could be a lot of stuff that we don't know that's there. So we might need to clear that area or confirm, are the field artillery units located there? So that's going to be I need another mission tasking for that. Confirm or deny enemy's location. In AI number 2, that is a valley. Now, if we look back at our old screen, we've got all sorts of stuff right here, okay? But we don't know the composition of that. That could be a battalion. That could be a company. That could be just 1 or 2 vehicles. But we notice that it's in this valley here. What are they doing? So I need to make sure that that's not going to be a surprise, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen to me is I go engage, I take over Taco, I take over Hot Dog, and all of a sudden I've got a battalion's worth of armor hit me in the side that I didn't expect. I don't want to be unexpected. I want to know. So I'm going to have to task another reconnaissance of that area before we start, because I don't want surprises. I want to know and expect what the enemy is going to do. In AI number 3, we know that there is field artillery over in that area. So we want to verify, are they still there? What type of, that might be another tasking. If they are there, then we know that objective Hot Dog and Taco are in danger from that field artillery. So I might have to assign fast movers to go drop bombs on them. But in order for me to do that, I need to know where they're at. So now I need to task one of my reconnaissance to go find them, fix them, record their location, so we can go ahead and do that. So as you see here, understanding what the commander's intent is, what is the hire's plan, is really crucial. Where do we fit in the reconnaissance realm of what do we need to do? Why are we trying to gather this information? In AI5, what's so important about in AI5? Oh, well, we need to find, is there any scuds in AI2? So understanding what the commander's intent is, what the battle plan is, what the hire's plan overall is really crucial in conducting reconnaissance.
Then
Because
he better tell us.
Say again?
Then he better tell us, right?
That's right. So you just can't go in reconnaissance and say, hey, I need you to go out and find this convoy, or hey, tell us what the strength is over there. And you go out and do that, and you're like, oh yeah, the strength is they've got 20 tanks. It looks like they got this and like that. And then later on down the road, you realize, oh, well, he didn't care what the tanks were. He wanted to know what the air defense was, because he's going to send all sorts of air defense unit or aircraft in there to bomb the facility behind it. So, oh, well, if you would have known that, then you could have given him the right information for his plan. So it becomes really crucial. So that's why reconnaissance is not just going out and do something, but you are a very, very vital point. And you might not have to fire a single bullet to get that crucial information. So as we look a little deeper in the plan here, this is what the game plan of the intent of the commander is to do. He wants to go in with his brigade, and he wants to do a brigade going into Objective Taco and Hot Dog. So that's our goal. That's his goal. And we're going to facilitate that by going into the CCIR, or his critical information report, and say, he's got this question, I've got this answer for you. So we also look at what's later on down the road. Now, we know that there's going to be another 2 objectives, Bud and Coors, on this operation. But we need to first get to Taco and Hot Dog before we get to the beer. And in order to do that, we need to do our job here. Now, we might have somebody later on that goes out and conducts a reconnaissance of NAI 5. And NAI 5 might be a crucial thing. You know, that could be a long range operation. You could say, well, I need 2 Apaches to conduct this long range reconnaissance. And they might carry 2 bags of fuel and maybe 1 or 2 missiles, and that's it. And it's a long flight, but they're going to sneak across the ground. They're going to try to identify, hey, do they have what the commander thinks they have? Are they set up for a defense, offense? Do they have a reserve unit? Did they reinforce themselves? So those might be things that for a long-range reconnaissance that we have to think about. Now, can a Gazelle do a long-range reconnaissance? No. Can a K-50 do a long-range reconnaissance? No. How about OH-58? No. So you have to think about, well, let me scratch that. A K-50 might be able to do it. I think he could. I think he could probably, if you put 2 bags of fuel, you could do a 3, maybe almost a 4-hour flight. So you would have to be like, okay, I can get there, but I might only have maybe 15 minutes to conduct reconnaissance. And that might be all we need. We might just need that. So NAI 5. Now, this is going to be for one of the groups to conduct a reconnaissance in this area. Now, if we looked earlier, we said the commander does not want to be surprised by all of a sudden a Scud attack to the base of operation or the headquarters. He got word that one of these locations is a location that there is possibly 1 or 2 Scuds. There could be chemical Scuds. They could be regular munition Scuds with explosives. We need to identify, is there or is there not anything there? And we might say, hey, yes, you found it and everything. And the commander might say, hey, prosecute, take that out, and so forth. Okay, but you might not be able to. It could be heavily defended. It might not be defended at all. So you don't know that. And you also know that there's 3 facilities here, or 3 looks like towns, and then you have a friendly force in this town here. This is along our border. So friendly forces are south of the red line. So we do have a FOB right there. Now, we tried, and the commander tried to send out scouting units, ground units, but the unfortunate thing is, in order for them to get to this high terrain, they need to secure this high terrain, and we found out that the enemy has people up here. So there's no way that we can see this town or see a portion of this town from any of this area here with ground troops, because the enemy already has some people scattered throughout the AO. So that's where you, in the reconnaissance field, is going to have to come in and play. You have the ability to maneuver quickly around finding good spots and so forth, but you also have to be aware of that you might have eyes out here that might see you. So you have to be cautious about that. So let's talk about this. As a group, what's some of the things that you see just by looking at this? And what we can do is we could go to the map, and we'll go to the map and we'll see that. But we have high terrain. We have a lot of contour lines everywhere, so we have places that we could hide. So being high in altitude is not a good thing for this, unless you're doing let's say right here, you're going to climb up to 1,000 feet. Well, what if the enemy has something that's going to reach out and touch you at 1,000 feet? Well, you're going to go down, and then you just cost the taxpayer dollars roughly $23 million. So we don't do that. We do things systematically. So you're going to think about this. Who gets assigned this mission? NAI 2. So we see how the terrain looks here. in Delta Uniform 5-6. So we know that there's stuff over here, but we don't know their strengths. So we have high terrain, we have a valley. We don't know if there might be, by the time you get there, they might be here, they might be there. We don't know. So how do we utilize this terrain to verify what's here in NAI2? And in order to verify that, doesn't mean you're in it. Always remember, reconnaissance, you don't have to be a part of the object that you're looking at. You're looking into the area. So you're going to be looking into NAI2. So for this mission, it's going to be identify what's the strength, what is, and what type of activity are they doing? Are they a threat? Are they not a threat?
What about
And
this
then
other valley to the south?
to the south here.
Yeah, there's
You're like-
another valley that they could go down.
So if you're going to conduct a reconnaissance here and confirm or deny that information, we need to make sure that that's good. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're not compromised either east or west. So, and that valley is a good point. That's part of you giving that critical information. Is this terrain not suitable for what's ever here? And they might have to turn around and go down the other valley. Or is there a road network that you've confirmed that there's an MSR here and they can just easily go that way? And then we have NAI 1. I got NAI 2 there, but NAI 1, we know that there's field artillery over here. We know that there's a road going this way. But do we know if there's any enemy hidden in all these hills? We don't know that. So you have to be systematic. You have to look at the terrain, and this is going to be crucial. You guys are going to have to, before you even get skids up and wheels up, develop your plan of attack. How are you going to do this? Where are you going to go, and so forth. And then NAI 4. NAI 4 is a large open valley, and we might go ahead and have a ground units be in battle position 1, and they can be observing over this area. Okay. So in your knee board today, you're going to have 2 things in your knee board. Now you have a lot of other stuff in your knee board as well. So your knee board is a tactical SOP. So it's got all sorts of information in there. So you're going to go ahead and scroll to the knee board section that says NAI. So whatever NAI is, what type of terrain, environment condition, what the enemy activity is. A spot or salute report. So the spot and salute report is pretty simple. What's the size? What's the activity, location, uniform, time that you observed, and what type of equipment? Is it special equipment? Is it, hey, there's nothing but construction equipment? That's vital information, because if it's construction equipment, that means they can build stuff. If there was a bridge that was out, they might be able to rebuild that bridge. But if we take out their capability, now they can't rebuild that bridge. So now if they were going to utilize that as a exit point or retreat, we've now suckered them in. We've closed their area of escape. Now we've fixed them. Now we can destroy them without having to worry about them getting reinforced, because we took out their support. Or is it fuel? I mean, all sorts of stuff. So the time is really important. What type of uniform? And what I mean by uniform is, are they in military uniform, or are they like jihadists and they are in Afghan uniforms? That's kind of crucial information. If they're in Afghan uniforms and it's just a group of guys doing target practice, it might not be the enemy. It might be a guys getting together and doing some shooting and having a barbecue. I would hate to throw, a Hellfire missile and destroy their party. So,
Hang on. You would rather shoot the guy with a cell phone without an AK and just let the guys with the AK shooting around live?
it's all about rules of engagement. It's all about rules of engagement. So in conclusion for this portion right now is reconnaissance is a mission. It's not about the platform. You can conduct reconnaissance in a vehicle with 2 guys on top of a hill, in a helicopter, in an armored helicopter, or even in a Huey or in an unarmed helicopter. It's about gathering crucial information and utilizing the equipment that you have in order to gather that crucial information. Reconnaissance also, for us in the attack helicopter side of the house, we have the capability of using speed, the flexibility of maneuvering on the battlefield, using our optics, and also, depending on what we need to do in order to get the enemy to do or conduct an operation, we can bring that firepower to it. We must think about the planning considerations of what type of equipment that we're bringing and the capability of our limitations, as well as the capabilities and limitations of the enemy in order to accomplish that. And recon and security planning is the key to success. And what I mean by the key to success is you looking over things ahead of time and really diving deep into looking at all different types of maps on DCS, the topographical, the aviation map, the satellite view is crucial, because you can start developing, hey, let's go ahead and let's go to the left and let's go to the right. Let's see that valley. We can utilize the hill here or that terrain there. You're looking at that stuff. You're not getting to the location and then deciding, hey, what do you think? Do you think we need to go left or do you think we need to go right? You're not doing it on the fly there, because you could be going into a trap. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to take this off real quick. Does anybody have any questions so far? It's a lot of information.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest. Okay, I have a little question, but maybe it's off scope of this event a bit. Because if you see that slide where you're talking about the aircraft capabilities, when I see the radio of the Kiowa and the Apache, I don't know about this sync guard radio, what is exactly. But my question, I'm concerned a bit about the quality of my transmission. If the METI, according to the METI, I need to fly NOE. The map of the Earth. So I have in the K50 that VHF radio. I have a switch with the FM and AM modulation. I don't know which condition really I need to use this. Maybe the Huey too has this switch in one of its radios when you switch between FM and AM.
So has anybody ever heard of the word hybrid? Having a hybrid on station.
Yeah.
Nope.
Sounds like a relay station to me.
It is exactly that. It's a relay station. So when we are conducting reconnaissance, we have to think about how's the terrain going to limit us on our communication. So if we know the enemy, and let's say we're working with, I'm going to use years, 1970s versus 2010. Okay, 1970s, we started to get into SINGARs or secret radio communications and so forth, but they had a capability, Russia had a capability of having 2 guys on a radio system in different locations, and every time you transmit, they're not hearing what you're saying, but they are getting a signal, and then they can triangulate that signal. Okay, so they can kind of narrow it down. They don't know where it is, what it is, and stuff like that, but they know it's somewhere over there. Now let's fast forward that to 2010, and for the US, for example, and we have hybrids. We have hybrids that are big old towers in the sky, and those towers in the sky can work as a relay station, but they can also work to triangulate as well. So now you have friendlies that you can transmit your information via them down to a ground base, or AWACS kind of similar to it. But every time you do it, you have now the capability or the possibility of transmitting, and the enemy having the same capability of being able to intercept that there's a signal coming from this grid location, and now they have another one, or they move and it pins it to this grid location again, and now they're triangulating. And now for every time you transmit, you have the capability of telling the enemy your position. So you conducting reconnaissance might mean you don't talk. You have to gather the information, and you have to do it at a certain time, and then be back at the rally point or back across friendly forces at a certain time. So then you can give your report. One of the things that we used to do in the 1970s and 80s and 90s was video recording. So you could video record, so you're not transmitting. Boom, you could do that. Now we have digital information transfer, which is a data link. Okay, so one aircraft has the capability of data linking the information to another aircraft. And again, can the enemy triangulate? It's a little bit harder to try to triangulate because you're not doing a solid burst. And when the enemy has a high bird doing the same thing, gathering intelligence on communication, they have a device that is going through millions of frequencies every 2 or 3 milliseconds or a millisecond. I don't know how they do it and so forth, but it's going through a whole scan. Well, the data bursts tries to do a data burst in the middle or where there's a dead spot in their scan. So that was the concept of it. For us today, we have to kind of think, we don't know if they got that capability. So every time you transmit on the radio and you're not doing a data burst or a data link, you have the potential of transmitting your position. So it's a risk versus reward situation at that point.
What about
For you?
E-War?
Oh, say again?
What about E-War? Can't we just jam the guys with cell phones or block
You
the
could.
frequencies?
You could, but again, that is you can only jam to a certain distance and location. So, for example, ground guys for IEDs, they can, I think it was called the Rhino. It sends out a scan, or it sends out a signal that just jams cell phones at a certain distance. Like I think it was like 200 meters. I mean, it just creates a big bubble. Well, you can't do that in the air because your bubble's only really small, and it's not gonna affect the guy that's 10 miles away that's receiving your transmission that you're transmitting.
I think they use growlers to jam off back at once.
Yeah. So the growlers send out information, and that's what they're doing. They're overloading the enemy's sensors. And so it's communication overload. That's what they're doing. But it's also a double-edged sword. By us doing that, it also affects us as well. So
Okay. Yes. The electronic warfare or jamming, that's something not in DCS. But I'm concerned about if I'm inside the forest that block the signal. I need to transmit in AM modulation, or I have I don't know if interference from something natural, like I don't know.
DCS doesn't mimic tree interference.
Okay, that's good.
Only terrain.
It does terrain, right? Okay.
Yeah, only terrain.
VHF has the best clear voice. What do you mean? Quality. And HF
FM.
has the longest range and go indirect.
You mean VHF FM?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
No.
So always think of it like this. Think of range when you're talking about all this stuff. FM is short range. VHF is medium range, and UHF is long range. So if you think of it like that, then in the real world,
AM and UHF are line of sight. So as long as you have line of sight, you can have communications. I wouldn't necessarily say that as long range, because long range is over the horizon,
yes,
which is either HF or SATCOM.
So for the UHF, one of the things, the benefits of a UHF was why it was considered long range is because you can use the ionosphere. I'm just using this as an example. You can use the ionosphere and it bounces off of the ionosphere, so it reaches long range, compared to VHF that does not get bounced off the ionosphere.
Correct.
Okay. Because I'm struggling with SRS in some servers when I have a line of sight and within 100 kilometers, and I can't reach the other K50. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
So in DCS, you also have wattage that plays in a factor with DCS. So if your aircraft, its wattage also determines how much power and signal in SRS, it does its calculation. It, in essence, will give a transmitting distance. Now, I've got my SRS set up right now that doesn't play a factor for us because we're within a 50-mile range of any communication transmitting device. So that's why you can hear the radio if you are 50 to 75 miles out from the air base. You can hear the radio and so forth. But if you are transmitting, let's say your FM, and you're only transmitting 2 or 5 watts, then your distance for transmitting, you're not going to be able to hear anybody. Kind of a rule of thumb is 5 miles. So if you're only doing 5 watts, you are going to hear some static that somebody's transmitting about 5 miles away. If you do 10 watts, okay, now you can kind of do 10 miles. If you're doing 50 watts, you can do 50 miles in DCS. That's kind of a rule of thumb.
The watts is all about the person transmitting. So if they have a low power output, their signal is not going as far. You can hear the click, but you can't hear anything else. Now, that person can still hear you because you have a higher power output. So let's say like the handheld radio that the ejected pilots have, that's a very low wattage radio. So that would be along those lines of you need short distance and line of sight.
Okay, but technically, if I have also in my radio in the K50 the squelch switch. So if I go off squelch, I can hear a bit. If some voice, yeah, okay.
So if you think about your squelch, so that switch takes this. In other words, your static, and we utilize this in long range communication. For example, I'm going to use UHF as an example. So UHF, or ultra high frequency, you can get a lot of static from, say, solar flares and so forth. And by doing that, you're going to hear nothing but static, and you'll hear like little peaks and this and that. What that's doing is that's saying, okay, if my radio picks up a signal and it is able to establish that it is connecting to that signal, I'm going to let that pass through. And it allows you not to constantly hear nothing but static. Now, when you turn that switch on, that means you are bypassing that blockage. And now it's going to say, okay, I'm not going to try to clarify that I've got a signal. I'm just going to go ahead and just tell you what I'm receiving. And yes, you could hear that, and that's good as a backup, because at that point you're still trying, you make out something, but you don't know what you're really making out. So that's why we have that on there. So if it's really, really far away, you might still be able to hear something until you get a little bit closer.
Basically, it's a filter based on signal strength. If the signal strength is too low, it doesn't let signal through to your headphones. But sometimes you want that low level signal, you want to hear it. So that's why that switch is there.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, all of you.
Okay.
And sometimes it's I don't know, I haven't flown the KA-50 in a long time, but sometimes it's actually a rotary dial and you can adjust the modulation. It's not just an off-on thing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So the big takeaway from all this is conducting a reconnaissance. It's about stealthiness. So don't fly high. It's not about get in there as fast as you can and try to be Johnny on the spot and so forth. You always hear the word slow. What's the saying goes? Slow is fast, or
No, slow is smooth, smooth is
fast.
there you go. Yes, that is a great saying, especially in the reconnaissance, because it's time consuming. And reconning is not something that is done lickety split. There's a lot of planning that goes along with it. I need to know certain information. So when I need to know that certain information, that's going to be crucial for my decision. So I don't need it to be, unless it's time critical, I need you to get me the answer. I don't need you to half-ass do it.